They say wisdom was granted to Solomon as a divine gift, but every gift casts a shadow. I have walked the echoing corridors of his legend, and what I have found is not the simple tale of a righteous king, but the record of a man who spoke with spirits no priest would name aloud. He built a temple not only for God, but for the mysteries beneath heaven. The story begins with silence, a silence that dripped from the stones of Jerusalem like oil from an unsealed jar. The kingdom was at peace, and yet within the peace, a hunger stirred. Solomon's mind turned toward the invisible. He sought understanding beyond the commandments of his fathers, something older, something radiant and terrible. They called him the wisest of men. Yet wisdom, in its truest form, is a kind of possession. The mind becomes a vessel. The breath of revelation enters, and what follows is never entirely human again. I have seen this truth mirrored in every magus who came after him. He built his temple upon the mount where Abraham raised his knife, where the veil between worlds thins. The masons whispered that strange symbols were carved into the foundation stones, marks not of Hebrew origin, but of some pre-Edenic script that shimmered in torchlight and then vanished. The workers spoke of invisible hands guiding the alignment, of voices that corrected their angles when no mortal overseer stood nearby. In the night, Solomon dreamt, or perhaps he did not dream at all, and perhaps he was summoned. A light appeared before him, neither of sun nor flame, and in that light stood an angel clothed in fire, bearing the ring that would make his name eternal. The seal of Solomon, a band of gold upon which the six-pointed star was engraved, a symbol both divine and infernal, for it binds as easily as it blesses. With that ring, the angel said, "You shall command the spirits of earth and air. You shall build the house of God with the labor of demons." And so he did. The testament tells that Solomon summoned them one by one. Beelzebul, prince of the flies, whose breath carried pestilence. Orneus, who drained the vigor of men and whispered in women's dreams. Asmodeus, lord of desire, chained beneath the throne. He questioned each about its origin, its power, its weakness, and by the name of God he bound them to the work. Yet as I read his words, I feel the trembling beneath the page. He did not merely interrogate these spirits, he conversed with them, he learned from them. He began to see creation through their eyes, and when one gazes too long into the abyss of understanding, the abyss replies. The temple rose magnificent, stone and cedar, gold and song. But within its walls an unseen choir murmured. The demons carved the stones and polished the metals. Some say they sang hymns of mockery under their breath, others that their lamentations sanctified the work more deeply than prayer. When the ark was placed within, Solomon knelt alone before the altar. In that moment, legend says, a tremor passed through the earth and the shadows on the walls grew faces. They bowed. To rule spirits is to risk reflection. The seal upon his finger gleamed with every invocation, and with each command the boundary thinned. He began to perceive the architecture of heaven mirrored in the geometry of hell, each seraph reflected by a fallen twin. Wisdom became a mirror with two faces, and so Solomon learned the secret that every magician must face. One does not banish darkness, one integrates it. The very act of dominion over the demonic binds the soul to its knowledge. Years passed. The temple stood gleaming like a crown upon Jerusalem's brow. The priests recited their rites, but whispers circulated among them that the king no longer prayed as they did. He would retreat into the innermost chamber, ring raised before the darkness, and utter words not found in any psalm. It is written that he began to inscribe symbols upon copper plates, not merely the names of God, but the seals of angels and their opposites, circles within circles, the beginnings of what would later be called the Goetia. One evening a voice rose from beneath the floor, not the growl of a demon, but the mournful cadence of understanding itself. It told Solomon that knowledge is a fire that consumes both altar and idol. You have built the house of God, it said, but who will dwell in you? He hesitated then, and for the first time the ring felt heavy upon his hand. It is said that Solomon's fall began not with lust or pride, but with longing, a longing to know the true nature of the spirits he had chained. He asked them about their origin, and they spoke of stars before the dawn, of light that had never touched the earth. They described creation as a wound, a division of unity into matter, and Solomon listened. The deeper his understanding, the thinner his faith. He began to suspect that the God of Israel was only one face of a greater mystery. The ring upon his finger no longer shone with divine clarity. It pulsed, alive, as though containing the heartbeat of another will. When he looked into the polished bronze mirrors of his court, he saw not his own reflection, but the gaze of Asmodeus, calm, knowing, pitying. You command us, the demon said, because you are one of us. The chronicles tell that Solomon's wisdom turned to madness. Yet perhaps it was revelation. The ancient magicians of later centuries, those who wrote the grimoires, who called upon the 72 spirits by name, all claimed descent from his secret art. They understood that he had glimpsed the architecture of power, that the divine and the demonic are not enemies but correspondences. He mapped the invisible empire, the hierarchy of angels mirrored by the ranks of demons, each governing an aspect of nature and mind. The seal became not merely a symbol of command, but a diagram of the cosmos itself, as above, so below. I have seen those same sigils in the margins of Renaissance texts, in the secret diagrams of alchemists, in the initiatory papers of the Golden Dawn. Every order that sought to reconcile light and shadow traces its lineage to the king who dared to listen to his demons. In his later years, the tales grow darker. Solomon, it is said, lost his ring. Some claim Asmodeus stole it while the king slept and cast it into the sea. For 40 days, Solomon wandered in rags, forgotten by his court, mocked by the same spirits he once commanded. Yet perhaps this exile was the final initiation. Without the ring, he was forced to confront the truth. The demons were never his servants, but his mirrors. They reflected the ungoverned forces within him, desire, pride, ambition, fear, and through mastery of them he had come to know himself. When he finally recovered the ring cast ashore by a fish, he did not use it again. He sealed it away as one seals a completed lesson. He returned to his throne, older, quieter, his eyes holding the strange calm of one who has seen beyond the duality of good and evil. The temple still stood, but its stones seemed different, hollowed by understanding. In time, Solomon died, and the legends multiplied. The temple fell, rebuilt, and fell again, yet the seal remained. It passed through centuries like a whisper, engraved on amulets drawn in grimoires, traced in the air by those who sought dominion over spirits or over themselves. The Kabbalists said it symbolized the marriage of opposites, the union of mercy and severity. The alchemists saw in it the formula of transformation, fire descending, water ascending. The occult orders of the modern age claimed it as the emblem of initiation, the soul's descent into matter and its ascent toward light. But I have come to believe that the true legacy of Solomon is not the ring, nor the temple, nor even the wisdom he displayed before the world. It is the whisper that remains after the invocation, the quiet recognition that every demon we name is a fragment of our own divine intelligence, estranged by fear and called back through understanding. And so, as I close the testament and lay the seal aside, I hear the same silence that began the tale, not emptiness but expectancy, the silence of a temple before dawn, the silence that waits for the magus to speak the first word again. In that stillness, Solomon's voice lingers, calm, sovereign, unrepentant. I built the house of God with the hands of demons, and in their labor I saw my own reflection. For wisdom is not the light that banishes darkness, it is the flame that reveals it. You've been watching the Esoteric Unveiled, exploring hidden orders, forgotten truths, and forbidden knowledge. Like and subscribe.